Milkshake Monday. This is episode 272, Too Quick to Quit. I am Anita Helm. I am going to be speaking, and we are welcoming you, if you're new subscribers, to our Dōes channel. Now, tonight, we're getting ready to prepare for us to be transitioning to go into another year. And as we think about some of the things, people do all kinds of things where they have New Year's resolutions and they make all these different plans that they're going to do. But I want us to start with some better commitment when it comes to the things of God and our relationships. And so tonight, when you start to see too quick to quit, I'm going to show you examples where there are many times, all of us, y'all know that, all of us have a situation where if things get hard, it's easier to say, hey, I'm done, I'm finished, that's not my lane, I'm not going to do it. But there are many opportunities that some of us find that if you just reflect on your life, even the last 5 or 10 years, and you say, what if I hadn't stopped practicing this? Would I be a better piano player? Would I be a better speaker? Would I be a better, all these different things you could be a better anything at if you just stuck to it and been committed. And many times we can let a frustration, things that are hard in our lives, stop us from progressing. And we don't understand that there are some things that God has in store for us that it's not always going to be easy. And tonight we're going to see some examples where if the people in these scenarios who face some difficult things had just quit, we don't know where things would have ended up. But see, they didn't quit. And I'm going to show you how they had many opportunities to quit, but they just didn't do it. And I know for myself, when I have gone down a path and I'll say, oh no, this is not going to work. Anita and my lack of consistency sometimes have stunted my growth, have caused me not to be blessed where I could be blessed. And I'm just sharing with you that we don't want that for our future. We don't want that for our new year. We want to be more committed. So let me just tell you a few examples of some people in the Bible that I could have used, but I chose to use something else. Now, think about this. If we consider, let's say, David, King David that we're always talking about, David was on the run. David had gotten the promise of being king, and Saul, crazy Saul, was after him all that time. It wasn't just a few minutes. It wasn't just a few weeks. It was months. And you found that he was on the run, living in a cave, having to act crazy, all kinds of stuff. What if David had quit? But he did not. Now, I think also not of David, think about Joseph. We see Joseph, we always say the coat of many colors. Well, while he was with his dad, that all sounded fine and it seemed like fun, But when his brothers betrayed him and sold him into slavery, when he went to Potiphar's house and was falsely accused of rape, went to prison, all that was something that he could have said, okay, I'm done. I just want to quit. But he didn't do that. And I think that if we see some of the examples in the Bible and we really look at it to say, what would we have done? Would we have just said, I'm not going to go any further, I'm just done? Or would we have persevered? Would we have counted all joy? These are really interesting scriptures that we're supposed to hold on to. But when we start to go through life, it gets kind of tough. And I give you one last example, because as we start to look at the end of the year, we've gone through Thanksgiving, we're looking at getting ready to hit Christmas and the New Year's. And a lot of people go through these months and they're depressed. And I want to give you the example of Elijah. Elijah was a man of God. He did a wonderful miracle, and then he got a death threat from Jezebel, and he went from being on the mountaintop to running for his life, running like a track star. Usain Bolt, right? And so he gets into this place where he's running and he's afraid for his life. He's kind of disappointed. He's dejected. He's depressed, even to the point he says he wants to die. And that's Elijah. So when you and I go through things and we get kind of turned around and upset, it surprises us to say, oh, I'm not a great Christian. Oh, I'm not like that preacher. I'm not like that deacon. I'm not like that trustee. Hey, all of us go through some things. Elijah, Joseph, David, the list could go on and on. But the thing that we all have to remember is that don't quit. And some of us in the army of the Lord are finding ourselves as AWOL. We are away doing our own things without permission from God, without any kind of consultation with God. We've left many of these houses of worship with pews that are empty, not because we're elderly or because we're autoimmune and all the different reasons we can have for sickness and disease or elderly. We're not coming because we just don't want to be bothered. It's not our thing. We would rather just be deserters on God's army and said, hey, deal with it, God. So tonight we're going to deal with 3 different people in the Bible. When I talk to you, I want to feel as though you and I are in the same room. When I started Milkshake Monday, it was to have conversations with different people so that they can grow in their relationship with Christ. None of us know everything. I have been given the gift of teaching, but believe me, I don't know everything. I was playing this game with my daughter, and she was talking about something, and I said, "What'd you say?" And I had been reading out of a version of the Bible that identified Daniel's name as a different name. And it wasn't until we played this game that I realized that Daniel was one of David's sons. One of David's sons. I was like, what? Because I had heard his name in a different translation, I never knew that Daniel was one of David's sons by, by Abigail. I was like, what? For all these years, I've been calling that other name. I didn't know that. I learned something every day from God, every day. Now let's start in Genesis chapter 6, verses 9 through 22. Now, we all have heard the story of Noah, and we see it from the vantage point of building the ark and how that construction was difficult. And you got to imagine, he was almost 500 plus years old, and that's not the same as what we have, but he's a pretty old man. And he's got this task from God. And I'm going to tell you the kind of overview of the story, so when you see the scriptures, you have some appreciation. You have seen that it says that the 8 people, himself, his wife, his 3 sons, and their daughters. But I want you to understand something. They had neighbors, they had friends, the daughters had family members, they had family members. There are people surrounding them. All of those people, Noah has an appreciation that if they don't get on that ark, they're going to die. They're going to be drowned by God because God is so upset with the violence and the evil corruption of the people that he's going to kill everything. But we always see the actual construction of the ark and the years that it took to make the ark. We say, oh, that was heavy labor. And yes, it was. The work of what he had to go through was difficult, and he could have quit with the work. But can you imagine the emotional anguish it must have been to know that all of the people in his life, friends and foes and relatives, all of them were going to die? Can you even imagine how it must have been to talk to his wife and his sons, to tell them to keep going, don't quit? Because they're probably saying, Dad, you got that from God. We didn't get that from God. So they had to trust that Noah wasn't crazy. They had to trust that all those years of building and all those years of assembling all the construction materials and all those years of getting animals and insects and birds and all that stuff together, where God is bringing them, but once they're in the ark, they have to be cared for. But they couldn't quit, because guess what? In certain things that we quit at, we can quit and we'll think there's no consequence. It may be some lack of learning, some lack of growth, some lack of potential and promises for our lives. But in Noah's case, if he quit, if he stopped building the ark, God's word was still going to happen. And instead of him saving his family and all those creatures, he would have died. His consequence of quitting would have been disastrous and would have eliminated everything and everybody, to include his own family members. So he didn't have the option, just like we do. Oh, I'm going to quit. No, that wasn't what happened with Noah. So let's begin at verse 9 of Genesis 6. This is the account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked fearfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. I want you to see that word. That word violence is going to be repeated over and over again. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on the earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood. Make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around. Put a door in the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I am going. Now, here's the thing about God. We can be wishy-washy. We can change our minds. We can say, I quit. I don't want to do this. When God says what he's going to do, he's going to do it just like he said it. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. I am going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that is the breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. They're going to come to you, but it's their responsibility once they get there to take care of them. It says, you are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten. That's a big task. You're building the ark, you have the animals to take care of, you have your family to convince to be there and help you work and get this done. And in addition, take every kind of food that is to be eaten and stored away as food for you and for them. That is some zookeeping. And he could have quit, but he had years and years to build, years and years to collect, years and years to have those animals come. And the work, the magnitude of the work, the magnitude of the family, the magnitude of the death of the people that are around that family that were going to lose their lives, the depth of the animals and the insects and the creatures, the depth of the covenant. You are going to be the person, and your family is going to be the person that the lineage of the Lord is going to flow out of your loins, and he's going to make a covenant with you. That's not an easy thing to say. I'm just going to quit. I'm just gonna hang it up when I feel like it, when it gets hard. You don't think that he had some hard times? Do you think that he ever got tired? Do you ever think that he got mentally and emotionally and spiritually tired of the work? Sometimes I think we make all of these people in the Bible fantasy island characters. And we don't really think about what it meant to live out some of these things happening. What it meant for David to be on the run. What it meant for Joseph to be betrayed by his family. What it meant as the prophet Elijah to face his own death. We think it's easy. It's not an easy task. Now, let's go to another example. This example, I think, has a lot of relevance to today's life, as well as the one we're going to end with, Naaman. Now, we just came out of the pandemic. There are people who are suffering with long-term COVID symptoms. There are people who have ailments of heart and breathing and diabetes and kidney and cancer and every, depression, every kind of malady and sickness and disease that there are, short-term, long-term memory, every kind, everyone, schizophrenia, all kinds of things that I could name in every different category. In the case of Naaman, he was a prominent soldier, but he had a skin disease of leprosy. And normally the lepers weren't allowed to have any kind of contact, but he's so high up in his rank that he has chariots and horses, and he's going from different places based on who he is to the monarch, and he's able to travel. But that wasn't the norm for regular lepers. But I want you to see in his attitude and behaviors, even though he's a soldier with discipline, he's a quitter. And only through intervention by somebody that was in the right place at the right time did he not quit? And some of us, as smart as we are, as talented, as ambitious as we may be in these high-powered jobs with these titles, with, oh, I got a congregation in the building with this, and you want to quit. And you want to quit on God. You want to quit on the assignment. And God is saying, I've given you something. And he says, obedience is better than sacrifice. But when it comes to, all of us, we're just real people. When it comes to doing the things of God, a lot of them are not easy. God doesn't just give you, oh, by the way, Anita, let's do this and let's make it easy. I'm just going to make this click overnight. No, you have to be consistent and constant and prayerful and dedicated to the service of the Lord. And some things will come up, but you just got to keep your eye on God, not your eye on what is natural. We walk by faith, not by sight. Now, go to 2 Kings chapter 5, verses 8 through 19. I've already set this up. Naaman has been granted the petition to actually go into another land, and he's going to ask to be healed because his servant girl says that she knows of someone of her nation who can heal. And so the king got this letter from this other monarch and saying, hey, I need you to heal this guy. And he's thinking, this is a setup for failure. This guy wants to have a war with me. And he tears his robes. And Elijah the prophet hears about it. And so he's going to tell the king, send the guy over to me. He's going to take care of it. And I just wanted you to have that understanding, because when the quitting spirit comes on Naaman, he's not a person that loves the Lord, but he's a person like all of us can be, right? He's going to want something for years. He's going to want to be healed of this leprosy. But what he's going to be asked to do doesn't meet his expectation. He's going to compare that he could have got something done easier and better. And why did he have to do this? All the things when it comes to us making decisions about why we didn't get the job, why this girl didn't like me, why that boy didn't do this, why can't I do this? Why all these why questions, and all of a sudden, I'll show them, I'll just walk away, I'll just quit. I'll just get mad and take my toys and go to another playground. All that kind of behavior sounds like I'm being silly, but sometimes when you're in this posture where things are not going like you want, and you're like, I won't do it. I'll just up and quit. And we're too quick to quit. And it's damaging the promises that God is trying to have for our destiny. So let's start at verse 8 of 2 Kings 5. When Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his robes, he sent him this message. Why have you torn your robes? Have the man come to me, and he will know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Naaman went with his horses and chariots and stopped at the door of Elisha's house. Elisha sent a messenger to say to him, go wash yourself 7 times in the Jordan, and your flesh will be restored, and you will be cleansed. Naaman is tied to his sickness. It's on his skin. He's had it for a long time. Sometimes we're tied to the past and the present at the consequence of our future. And we're going to see that Naaman's behavior, his attitude, his immediate, this is what I feel, this is what I think, I got my attitude, I got my, I forget this expression, what they said, but your butt is on your back. He gets himself messed up and he's not thinking clearly. He's thinking in anger and a rage. And when you start to mess up and want to quit, check your emotions. Don't make hasty decisions about quitting in the fuel and the fury of your emotions. You need to be prayerful to God. That's why it's so important that God tells you, lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him and he will direct your path. But the thing about us is when we're huffy and puffy, we want to blow our house down, and we sure do. We make ill-advised decisions. So here's what's going to happen with Naaman. But Naaman went away angry and said, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God, wave his hand over the spot, and cure my leprosy. So let's see what he got first. He's angry. He's full of pride because he thought he was merited. He deserved to have Elisha come out and see him. He had in his mind how it was all going to go down. He had in his mind that my leprosy is going to be cured in a very upright, fashionable way that I've envisioned. He didn't have any understanding that it's not about him. It's about the God of the nation of Israel that is even willing to heal you, the man of God, the prophet of God. But Naaman is all about himself. His attitude is all about, I thought, me. I should have had better than this. And look, he keeps going on. It says here in verse 12, are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than? Here's the compare. When you're going through a bad decision of getting ready to quit, you start looking at comparing. Why didn't I get this? They got this. Why should I go through that? This is better. God didn't tell you to compare. He just said, take what he's giving to you because it's for you. Not to look at your brother, your sister, your neighbor, your church members, the people next door, to look at the Facebook and say, oh, they got a better life than me. Stop comparing. Because when you start to quit on what's in your lane of your destiny, it's because you're thinking about other people's. Let them live their life. You live yours. You're the main actor of your own life. But he's comparing rivers to say, the River Jordan? Oh, come on now. I know I deserve better than Jordan. I could have gone to these two rivers better than Jordan. I could have had a better man than this man. I know I deserve better than that. So you quit a good man because you go for a toxic man. Because you're comparing what you think instead of asking God. And he says here, better than all the waters of Israel? Couldn't I have washed in them and be cleansed? He quits. So he turned and went off in rage. I'm being for real. How many of us have gone off in our emotions, in our rage, in our feelings, because we didn't get what we want? We want to take our ball and run to the next playground because we think it's going to be better at the playground. And we get over there and it's 10 times worse. And we realize we never asked God before we quit. We never asked God before we got up and left that last congregation. God didn't say you can go. When you left that last relationship that had a man or a woman of God because you wanted to go do your own things. You left that last job because you thought you wanted to get bigger and better on and get the green pastures on another, and it didn't work out that way. Ask God. But Naaman, too quick to quit, turned off in a rage. But here's the intervention. And some of us, through the grace of God, have interventions, that we have people in the right place, because sometimes we have good counsel around us. But guess what? The young adults and the young people today and the old people, y'all got fools around you on the left, the right, front, and back. And fools will tell you foolish things because many of them will say there is no God, and that's as foolish as they are, and they don't want to consult God. And I tell you, I've been seeing so many fools in my family. I'm like, it's too many to count. Quitting. First of all, they never had a foundation of the Lord, but then they get into something that's supposed to be a covenant relationship and they quit. And they got fools around them saying, oh, that's good to quit. No. Too quick to quit. And you're going to regret ill-advised decisions. I'm trying not to say the word stupid tonight. I'm trying not to say the word dumb. I'm saying ill-advised, because if you go before the Lord and ask for the wisdom of God and wait on the Lord, He'll give you understanding. He will give you, His word says, lean not to your own understanding, but in all your ways, acknowledge Him. Acknowledge that the God that we serve wants the best for you. And guess what? The best for you is not always easy, and it's not always cake and ice cream. There's sometimes we have to swallow some bad medicine in our taste buds, but it's going to make us better. There's some times that we're going to go through things that are not easy, but it's going to help us get to our destiny. We don't get muscles by eating bad food and doing no exercise. It says, verse 13, Naaman's servants, plurals, went to him and said, "My father," this is their respect. "A soft answer turns away wrath." These are subordinate servants. They work for Naaman. They are people that are slaves. They don't have the pedigree. They don't have the position, but they now see, "Hey, what you doing? What's going on? You don't want to throw away this opportunity. The prophet said, go do this. Get out of your feelings. Don't quit. Stop being angry. Stop leaving the opportunity to get what you want, Master. You want to be well." Some of us want to have good, godly relationships. Well, guess what? Trust God. Wait. Some of us want to have good finances. Hey, be obedient and give as unto the Lord, your first fruits of your tithes and offerings. Hey, some of us want to have great jobs, but guess what? Pray and trust God and be obedient and work as unto the Lord with the job you have, and let yourself find that God will elevate you. God will give you favor. But here these servants are coming to do an intervention with Naaman. "My father, if the prophet had told you to do some great thing, would you not have done it? How much more then will he tell when he tells you, wash and be cleansed?" So some brain power started working. Some emotions started coming down off the ledge of insanity. And there's a process of time between them talking to him coming to the knowledge of, what am I doing? I am turning away. I am quitting. I am stopping progress from me being healed because I'm all in my feelings and my emotions and my pride and my arrogance and what I expected and what I thought. I. And I'm about to lose a blessing from the living God of getting my healing because I want to quit. Verse 14. "So he went down and dipped himself in the Jordan 7 times, as the man of God had told him, and his flesh was restored and became clean like that of a young boy." Now, read the rest of that story and the end of that verse at 19. As you go to read, he'll come back and talk to Elijah and want to give him something. Elijah doesn't want anything. But he says, "Go in peace," Elijah said. "Go in peace. You came for a cleansing, you got a cleansing." And the reality is he almost quit before he got his cleansing. But praise be to God, he did not. Some of us have. And some of us are living the consequence of quitting. Too quick to quit. We're too quick to quit, and it's not helpful to our future, and it's just causing us to stagnate where we are. Let's go to our last example. Now, Ruth, we're going to be in the book of Ruth, and we're going to be chapter 1 through 4, pretty timely. We all know about Boaz, and I think that's a wonderful love story of romance, all that good stuff. I'm not questioning any of that, and we'll see that. But had she not had some perseverance, staying power, going forward where she could have quit, there are a lot of situations in the Bible where people could have just thrown their hands up and say, "I'm done. I'm not doing this. I'm quitting. It's too hard. I have excuses why I don't need to go any further." But that's not what happened with Ruth. Ruth lost her father-in-law. Ruth lost her husband and her brother-in-law. Ruth lost her sister-in-law. She left her town. She was a foreigner in a strange land. She's going to go with her mother-in-law, but her mother-in-law is in depression. So she's with a woman who's going through depression. And even when for those of you who have had people who are in your life, whether they're your relationship of romantic relationship, spouses or friends or children or whatever the circumstance of people in depression, there are ebbs and flow with it where they can be very in their right thinking, and there can be times where they're manic or different things of what's going on in that mental illness, chemical off balance. When Naomi, her mother-in-law, decides to go back, Ruth goes with her. even though she sees her mother-in-law is going in a declining fashion, she could have quit. She could have said, I'll just stay back with mom and dad. I'll just stay in my own hometown. I'll just stay where my people serve another God. I'll just stay put. I'll just quit you, Naomi, and I'll go about my business, so you go about yours. And nobody would have probably said anything in Moab. But she was going forward. She had made a commitment and a vow to a husband that's now dead, and that commitment is over. She can get remarried. But she could have quit in the relationship with her and Naomi. And Naomi being depressed wasn't somebody that she really wanted to hang with, but she loved her. And there's some people that you got that's tough to live with, but you love them. You don't want to quit that relationship. You want to stick with them. And so we're in Ruth chapter 1, verses 16 through 22. Verse 16 says, but Ruth replied, talking to her mother-in-law, don't urge me to leave you or turn back from you. Don't ask me to quit. Where you go, I will go. And where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die. She's declaring, I'm not going to leave you. I'm not quitting. I'm not giving up. I'm staying, and I'm going to persevere with you till the end, until you die and I die, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm not quitting. She had every right to quit. She had every right to walk away from a woman that was no longer her mother-in-law, technically, because the son that had them connected was dead. Now look at what it says here. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely. She's putting a pronouncement on herself about her quitting. I'm not quitting. And God, take care of me if I do. If I get so out of bounds in my thinking and my emotions, may God deal with me severely if even death separates you and me. When Naomi realized that Ruth was determined, Ruth was no quitter. She was determined to go with her. She stopped urging her. She stopped telling her, go on back. She said, this girl is going to go with me. This daughter of mine is going to go with me. So the two women went on until they came to Bethlehem. When they arrived in Bethlehem, the whole town was stirred. Let me tell you something about the stirred. People can be stirred and talk, oh, I'm so glad to see you. Oh, what can I do? If you need something, just let me know. Just feel like you can call me. They were stirred up. But guess what? They were stirred up to do nothing. They didn't give her nothing to eat. They didn't give them anything to eat. They didn't give them shelter. They didn't give them, hey, I'm going to bring you some groceries. Hey, I'm going to bring you some firewood. Hey, I'm going to bring you some stuff. Hey, I'm going to get my honey to come over and fix up the house because I know you haven't been there for years. They got stirred up to do nothing. And that's what happens sometimes when the people of God get stirred up and they do nothing. It's all talk. After they finish their talking, they quit. They don't do anything that shows that there was anything backing just talking. But it says here, the whole town was stirred because of them. So it wasn't that they didn't know who they were, what they were coming back into. And the women exclaimed. That means that the women in the house that knew they got groceries in the house, they knew they got some meal, they saw Naomi, they recognized who she was. So what's the problem that you can't be a help? Can this be Naomi? And then Naomi starts to talk about her depression and starts to say, don't call me Naomi, call me Mara, bitter. God has been bitter to me. She's going through depression. She is going through something that is emotionally devastating to her. But guess what? Even in that depression, she only says me. She doesn't have, even people in depression sometimes can't understand it's not just them. She is not just the only one coming back. It's her and her daughter-in-law. Ruth is with her, but everything she talks to these women who are talking to her, look what's happened to me. Look what's happened to me. Well, the son that died was this woman's husband. The husband of Naomi that died was this woman's father-in-law. The other son is this woman's brother-in-law. She's effectively doesn't have any goods to eat either. So all that's happening to Naomi, yes, it's from her perspective of husband and sons, but Ruth's got some tough stuff going on too. But in this passage, Naomi is all about, this is me. It's all about me. I'm going through this. And she wants to quit on life. She wants to quit on hope. And it's not until Ruth, who keeps persevering, who refuses to quit, who's going to go out to the fields, who's going to do something, who's going to keep it moving, does she realize, comes to a point in her mental health a little bit to say, I'm going to try to help her. And when she ends up helping her, she helps herself. God moves on both of their behalves. But guess what? When you want to quit, you want to be hopeless. You want to say, oh, woe is me. Nothing is good. It's all working against me. Nothing's right. I just can't stand it. I just want to quit. Nobody loves me. Nobody cares. God cares. God loves you. God never leaves you or forsakes you. But see, when you're off balance on your thinking, your mental game is going in reverse. So she says here in verse 20, don't call me Naomi, she told them. Call me Mara, because the Almighty has made my life very bitter. I went away full, but the Lord has brought me back empty. Why call me Naomi? The Lord has afflicted me. The Almighty has brought misfortune upon me. Me. So Naomi returned from Moab, accompanied by Ruth the Moabite, her daughter-in-law. It's like they had to come back in the verse and say, hey, somebody's with you. You're not by yourself. You got a dedicated daughter-in-law right there with you. Arriving in Bethlehem as the barley harvest was beginning. Now, I've already said this and I won't prolong it a lot. Ruth, not only, some people use the word hustle. She didn't just hustle. She was working. It never said in the beginning stages when the husband was alive that she was a worker, and it doesn't seem like she was out in the field working like a handmaiden, going behind barley and doing that kind of work. And now she's not even going to say, hey, I deserve better work. I deserve a desk job. I deserve to be in the air conditioning. She is going out to do manual labor. She's not putting on airs to say, I know they don't expect me to go do no manual labor. She's going to get out and get in the field, and you're going to see that she's going to work and work and work and only take a break, to the point that the people that are the normal workers, because she's not a worker, she's not no day laborer, she's not a hired person. She is doing this, coming out on that field in hopes of just getting enough food so they don't starve to death. It says here in chapter 2, verses 2 through 23, and Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the fields and pick up the leftover grain behind anyone in whose eyes I find favor. Naomi said to her, go ahead, my daughter. So she went out and entered a field and began to glean behind the harvesters. As it turned out, she was working in a field belonging to Boaz, who was from the clan of Elimelech. Just then Boaz arrived from Bethlehem and greeted the harvesters. The Lord be with you. The Lord bless you, they answered. Boaz asked the overseer of his harvesters, who does that young woman belong to? How could he have asked that question if she had stayed back in Moab? How could he have asked that question if she stayed back in the house and oh, poor is me with her mother-in-law, Naomi, as they all cried into their soup, which they had none? But he found that he could ask that question because she was not sitting in her past. She was not moping about her present. She was doing something for her future and going out to that field to get whatever leftover she could find. And he asked this question, who does that young woman belong to? The overseer replied, she is the Moabite who came back from Moab with Naomi. She said, please let me glean and gather among the sheaves behind the harvesters. She came into the field and has remained here from morning till now. She didn't quit. Even in her hard manual labor workload, where I'm sure that wasn't her norm. I'm sure it was hard to be bending down and picking up and getting her hands calloused because that wasn't her normal thing. She didn't quit, to the point that these people are speaking up for her. She's been here from morning till now, except for a short rest in the shelter. So Boaz said to Ruth, he's going to come to the field and talk to her. Because she didn't quit, he has the availability to go talk to her. So Boaz said to Ruth, my daughter, listen to me. Don't go and glean in another field. And don't go away from here. Stay here with the women who work for me. She didn't also ignore his guidance. She didn't quit and said, well, I worked this one day. We got enough for a few days. I'll go back when I feel like it. She wasn't making up her own rules. She was following instructions from this man that she barely knew, but knew he owned the field. And he said to her some instructions, and she listened. Some people are always quitting because they never want to work. They never want to follow instructions. They never want to stay the course for the work that they have. They want to keep quitting and going to the next place and the next place. She followed instructions. Stay here with the women who work for me. Watch the field where the men are harvesting and follow along after the women. I have told the men not to lay a hand on you. And whenever you are thirsty, so she doesn't quit when she's thirsty. She's going to get some water. Some people, if the wrong situation happens, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I want more money, I want more friends, I want to live in a different neighborhood, I want 5 cars, I want 7, I want this, I want that. You can want a lot of things that you don't need everything. But when she needed water, she was thirsty. He's already told you go get water there. Don't just quit because you're thirsty. Don't quit because you're hungry, because I'm going to feed you and I'm going to make sure you got water. And whenever you are thirsty, go and get a drink from the water jars that my men have filled. At this, she bowed down with her face to the ground. She asked him, why have I found such favor in your eyes that you notice me, a foreigner? Didn't use the excuse that she's a foreigner. She got out there and worked. Boaz replied, I've been told all about what you've done for your mother-in-law. If you are there and available, you can have a testimony. But when you quit all the time and you have the attitude of a quitter, that the least little thing, the least little wind, and you're just gone. But if you stay, if you persevere, if you trust God, if you wait on the Lord, if you hold, there's a testimony that you will have if you are not too quick to quit. I've been told all about what you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband. That was a magnitude shift. She was in grief herself, but that didn't stop her from continuing to do what she needed to do to survive for the next day, for the promises of God, for the destiny. All of us can find some reason why we could say, it's tough. I'm grieving. I'm a foreigner. I'm depressed. I'm disappointed. I don't have money. I don't have this. We can all find a reason. Oh, I'm sick. My leg hurts. All this stuff we can find a reason. She didn't use that as an excuse. But that testimony of persevering, Boaz said, I've heard about it. And even since the death of your husband, you're out here in the field working like this to take care of your mother-in-law. Can you understand how this man, not knowing this woman, had heard enough? And there's some people hearing about you. And you're, oh, woe is me, sometime ready to quit, and God's getting ready to elevate you with his favor. You just have to realize, ask him. Don't lean on your own understanding. Ask him, acknowledge him, and let him direct your way. And if he says stay, stay. If he says go, go. But don't be making moves without the Lord. Don't be making decisions without asking God. God can speak. There is no question God can speak. His word, his spirit, all kinds of ways. Trust him. He says, the death of your husband, how you left your father and mother and your homeland and came to live with a people you did not know before. May the Lord repay you for what you have done. That's God. That's our God. Hallelujah. May you be richly rewarded by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. May I continue to find favor in your eyes, my Lord, she said. Now, we're not going to go through all of this. Do you remember when Ruth said, may the Lord treat her severely if she didn't commit to what she said about sticking with Naomi? And now you hear this declaration from Boaz talking about God's favor, his repayment, him blessing her richly. And because she didn't quit, the very words of this man's declaration out of his mouth, this unmarried, loving man who loves God, who has all this wealth and no wife, no children, that God has orchestrated this woman who did not quit, who was trusting after him to find the favor of God. And at the end of the story, read all those, we're going to jump over to chapter 4, verses 9 through 17. And I'm just going to go toward the end. After Boaz, there's a whole discussion that you'll see. We're going to start at verse 11 of that passage. Boaz has decided when Ruth comes and lays at his feet, he's going to go and talk to the kinsman redeemer and get an agreement that he's going to make this woman his wife. She didn't quit. And as a result of her not quitting, her doing what was honorable, Boaz is going to become her husband and the father of her child. Naomi is going to have a baby that she's going to be taking care of, all because Ruth did not quit. It says, then the elders and all the people at the gate said, we are witnesses. May the Lord make the woman who is coming into your home like Rachel and Leah, who together built up the family of Israel. May you have standing in Ephrathah and be famous in Bethlehem through the offspring the Lord gives you by this young woman. May your family be like that of Perez, whom Tamar bore to Judah. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. When he made love to her, the Lord enabled her to conceive, and she gave birth to a son. The woman said to Naomi, praise be to the Lord, who this day has not left you without a guardian redeemer. May he become famous throughout Israel. He will renew your life and sustain you in your old age. For your daughter-in-law, who loves you and who is better to you than 7 sons, has given him birth. Then Naomi took the child in her arms and cared for him. The woman lived there, said, Naomi has a son, and they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. And you can see the lineage of Matthew 1. Look at what God did. So I'm going to encourage you tonight to ask yourself these questions quickly. When it comes to God, are you quitting on God? Are you quitting on your destiny? Are you quitting on your prayer life? Are you quitting on your giving of your tithes and offerings? Are you quitting on the purpose of God in your life? Are you quitting when it gets hard? Are you quitting the main character of your life, which is you? Because things get hard and you get frustrated and you let your emotions rule. And I keep sharing with you that trust the Lord. Go to Proverbs 3. Trust the Lord with all your heart. Stop leaning on your own understanding, but in everything, all your ways, acknowledge God. Acknowledge him. Let him direct your path because he knows the ending before the beginning. He knows what he has in store for you. Good things, blessed things, favorable things. But you got to trust him. The word of God says the harvest is plenteous, but the laborers are few. I pray to the Lord of the harvest that he will send out laborers. Thank you all. Keep sharing, keep watching. Share the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ because people need it. Lord willing, I will see you next week. God bless you.
Okay.